Alright, we're back. No time limit on this one. We're just gonna finish it up.
More YouTube content together, and everything seems totally normal and fine. And by the way, all of these videos have now been deleted from Josh's YouTube channel. And if you're having a hard time following this timeline and it seems very flip-floppy, one minute they're friends, the next they're not, and you can't really get a grip on it, well, you're not alone. It was these mixed signals that made for a lot of confusion.
Whatever the public's perception is of our relationship is or isn't, or like what we should be doing to them, all I ever want to say to them is like, whatever you think you know of us is only half as deep as it really is.
Nobody could really tell if they were friends or just trying to remain relevant by milking.
Let me guess. You're thinking about going to therapy. And as a therapist myself, of course I'm going to say that's a great idea. But first, let's talk about the things they don't tell you.
The drama, or if they secretly were still mad at each other. But then behind the scenes, it got even more confusing when Josh pitched Drake an idea for a reboot of their classic Nickelodeon show. But the plot was seemingly set up to make Drake look bad. In 2019, Josh sent over the script to Drake. The idea was that Drake was going to be a failed musician, and Josh was going to be a successful real estate agent. They were basically parodying Drake's real life as a musician in Mexico, while Josh's character was entirely fictional. The opening line of the first scene was supposed to be one of Josh's clients recognizing him from Nickelodeon and saying their classic "hug me brother" catchphrase, only for Josh to deny it and say, "hug yourself, kid."
And then he goes, "hug me brother," and then Josh gets in the car and goes,
"Hug yourself, F-head." And that alone,
that was the first thing that I was like, we can't open our show like that.
First red flag, because you just said F you to the entire Drake
audience.
And Josh fan base.
Yeah.
Then it transitions to Drake in Mexico performing at a quinceañera for the daughter of a drug cartel leader, where they are all drinking and doing hard drugs. Drake is also performing with a mariachi band. During the performance, the cartel members get loaded, and a massive gunfight breaks out, and they end up not wanting to pay Drake for his service, which ultimately leads to him being broke and stuck in Mexico.
Josh has Drake stuck in Mexico, has him tweet, "I need money," or "I need to do a meet and greet for money," and only has like 3 people show up to the mall for the meet and greet so that Drake could get money back to the United States.
I'm not sure how real this is, but it sounds like some sort of Josh revenge fantasy for playing the goofy fat kid all those years. I don't think people realize that Drake worked hard to build up a Hispanic fan base. Making a reboot full of stereotypes, many hurtful, about this audience he built would cause Drake to piss off many long-term fans. Whether or not this script was real was never confirmed, but it did seem possible considering what unfolded next. Drake was about to face some major legal troubles for allegedly sexually pursuing underage girls, and Josh responded with a full-on press tour trying to convince the world that he and Drake hadn't talked in 10 years and were never friends. And that happened roughly around the time Drake was outed by his abuser for allegedly sexually pursuing underage girls. In August of 2020, Drake's former girlfriend, Melissa Lingafelt, who goes by the stage name Jimmy Ono on social media, posted a TikTok that jeopardized Belle's clean reputation. Melissa claimed that Drake committed both verbal and physical abuse during their relationship from August 2006 to February 2009.
When I started dating Drake, I was 16. I was homeschooled. I moved in with him. I was singing. It wasn't until about a year when the verbal abuse started. And when I say verbal abuse, imagine the worst type of verbal abuse you could ever imagine, and that was what I got. It then turned into physical, hitting, throwing, everything. At the pinnacle of it, he dragged me down the stairs of our house in Los Feliz. My face hit every step on the way down. I have photos of this. I don't even want to get into the underage girls thing. I mean, I will, but I'm scared.
As if the allegations of physical abuse weren't shocking enough, Melissa hinting that he was somehow involved with underage girls set the internet on fire. Drake vehemently denied ever abusing Melissa. As our relationship ended more than a decade ago, we unfortunately both called each other terrible names, as often happens when couples are breaking up, but that is it. Clearly, Melissa still felt close enough to me just last year that she was comfortable reaching out to ask me to provide her with financial support during a tough time, which I did. The public opinion on the situation was split. While many people reacted with empathy and support towards Melissa, recognizing the seriousness of domestic abuse, others were skeptical and expressed doubt about her claims, especially since Melissa failed to provide any concrete evidence against Drake. Plus, Drake made it seem like she was doing this expose for money, casting doubt on her intentions. It was purely a he said, she said situation, and Drake wouldn't face any legal consequences. Melissa, after spending weeks talking about the situation online, deleted all her videos and detached herself from the situation, but
This may be the last ad you see. With Pi Adblock, visit your favorite websites and watch ads disappear. However, you can also opt to see certain ads and get paid. Just add it to your browser. It
only took a few months for more serious allegations to come to light and Drake's reputation to be permanently destroyed. On June 4th, 2021, Bell was arrested in Cleveland, Ohio on charges relating to attempted endangering of children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. For context, child endangerment occurs whenever a parent, guardian, or other adult caregiver allows a child to be placed or remain in a dangerous, unhealthy, or inappropriate situation. Disseminating matter harmful to juveniles means that a person has unlawfully ordered, offered, sold, displayed, or given pornographic or obscene material such as books, videos, messages, photos, etc. to someone under the age of 18. To simplify, he was being charged with sexting a minor. However, the nature of the charges say that there was no sexual contact. According to the court documents, the date of the offense was December 1st, 2017. Bell was going to Cleveland, Ohio's The Odeon to perform a concert. Bell then seemingly invited the minor to his show in Cleveland. In the months leading up to the concert, Drake sent the victim inappropriate social media messages. The minor, who lived in Canada, attended Bell's concert in Cleveland. She and Bell met later that night at the Cleveland nightclub on Old River Road in the city's East Bank of the Flats district. In October 2018, 10 months after the incident, the 15-year-old victim filed a report with her local police department in Canada regarding what had happened that night. This is all the information that was revealed in the case. So naturally, people were confused as this was all extremely vague. Even news outlets were unable to discern what actually happened.
Disseminating matter harmful to children. We don't have information on exactly what that is, but you can imagine relationship between a 15-year-old girl and a 34-year-old man will let you draw your own conclusions.
Then his ex Melissa, who accused him of abuse on TikTok 1 year prior, did an exclusive interview with the Daily Beast where she claimed that she observed Bell's inappropriate behavior with minors firsthand. What he's being arrested for right now is a prime example of what I would witness. Him having inappropriate conversations online with underage girls. Melissa said, "I saw really questionable, crazy stuff on his computer. The stuff he'd be looking at was effing insane." These statements combined with the extremely vague court case details fueled the narrative that Drake was a pedophile. Now, it's important to consider that as soon as the victim reported Drake in October of 2018, Canadian authorities and Cleveland authorities promptly started an investigation. This investigation lasted 18 months, gathering all the evidence, photos, screenshots, and multiple statements from the victim to build a case against Bell. They even gained access to Drake's Instagram, Snapchat, laptops, everything they could. We don't technically know what they found, but whatever it was enough to cause Drake to enter a plea deal instead of going to trial. And on June 23rd, 2021, he pled guilty to attempted child endangerment. So remember, all the details regarding his case were extremely vague, and then on top of that, he pleads guilty. So now the general public is extra convinced he is a PDF file, but somehow it got even worse. Drake's sentencing was conducted over Zoom and then posted on YouTube. During this sentencing, the victim made an impact statement, which is essentially their opportunity to talk directly to the defendant and the judge to express their thoughts and emotions about the crime. This was the very first time anyone had heard the details of the alleged crimes that took place. But during the impact statement, the victim brought up countless new allegations and statements that were never presented during the investigation, which shocked Drake, the defense, and even the judge. Remember, Drake was already pleading guilty to basically sexting, but since he was pleading guilty, the public assumed that everything the victim was saying here was part of the case, but it was not.
I started off as a fan of him. Everyone who knew me as a child knew that he was a hero to me. I would have done anything for him. When I was 11, I learned that my aunt had a mutual friend who knew the defendant. That led to my aunt taking me to meet him for the first time in 2014 when I was 12. From the time I was 12 to 15, my aunt took me to meet him and spend time with him many times. After I met him for the first time, he started speaking to me more frequently online. When I was 13, I went to him for boy advice. He told me that I was beautiful and that boys were stupid. He then sent me a photo of myself that he had screen capped from my Instagram, telling me that I was, quote, such a cutie. He saved that photo of me onto his phone. Another instance of creepy behavior happened when I was spending time with him at the age of 14. He told me that he couldn't believe how much I'd grown since he last saw me. He said that I wasn't little anymore, and I was, quote, a woman now. But at 15, he started sending me messages about how, quote, hot I was. In the summer of 2017, I messaged him, telling him that I was going to see him in concert in the following months. He replied by telling me that he couldn't wait to see me. He also asked me, quote, how old are you now? I told him 15. He then told me to, quote, hurry up. Not too long after that, his messages to me became blatantly sexual. Aside from Cleveland, the only other time that the defendant sexually assaulted me was in October of 2017. It happened in Illinois in the middle of the night. He digitally penetrated me in the back seat of my aunt's car while she was driving him to a friend's house. This eventually led to many months of inappropriate messages and photos being exchanged over Instagram and Snapchat. The photos exchanged included photos of my body and photos of his body and his genitals. He would tell me how badly he wanted to penetrate me vaginally. On December 1st, 2017, my aunt took me to the Odeon Concert Club to watch him perform. That night, the defendant took me backstage to be alone with him. He started kissing me, and the night ended in him having me perform oral sex on him twice. The next incident happened on December 2nd, 2017. While I was alone with him in his hotel room, he had talked to me about seeing me one last time before we all left Cleveland and went home. So we went to his hotel to say goodbye. In his hotel room, he started kissing me and had me perform oral sex on him again. My aunt was right outside the room waiting in the hallway while this was happening. She trusted him and never thought that he would ever do anything to hurt me. The sexual messages continued for a while after that until I eventually put a stop to them. He ignored me for many days at first. Eventually, he tried apologizing to me for, quote, breaking my heart, but deleted those messages quickly afterward. He preyed on me and abused me. He is a monster and a danger to children. Jared Drake Bell is a pedophile, and that is his legacy.
People picked apart Drake's body language and pointed out that he was laughing, smirking, and shocked. But nobody mentioned that a lot of what the victim was saying here were new allegations that nobody in the court ever heard before. Specifically, the allegations that he forced the girl to give him oral and the allegation that he sent nude photos. The defense and the court both confirmed with evidence that no such sexual advances were made. Otherwise, the charges would have been more severe.
He did not plead to sexual misconduct or engaging in sexual relations. He pled to attempted endangering children and disseminating matter harmful to juveniles. These are serious allegations, but they do not involve sexual relations.
This is what Drake's defense admits to.
So the acceptance of the responsibility, Your Honor, is for chats that occurred between he and the victim. The subject matter of those chats were discussion because they had known each other for years, and there were claims that became sexual in nature. When asked, however, at what point, or at your age, at that point he said, can you hurry up? Which shows a complete intent not to engage with a minor. So, however, those chats, harmful as they were, clearly harmed this person at that time.
They were sexual in nature.
Those were, yes. Thank you. They certainly, however, Your Honor, did not mimic any of the factual scenarios that the victim has brought up here today. And again, I have to emphasize the fact that once the age was known, that terminated at that point, saying hurry up with the age. But I will say this, at the start, he may not have known. He did learn of the age at a later time, Your Honor, and that is why he's accepting the plea.
Basically, Drake admits to conversing with a minor for years, even though he says he didn't know her age. Those conversations eventually turned sexual. Then when he asked for her age, she told him 15 and he said hurry up, then stopped all communication. When Drake stopped conversing with her, they claimed that flipped the young girl's world upside down and she started going after Drake's wife and threatening to expose him. They basically paint her as a crazy, obsessed, and jealous fan, which we don't really know if that's true or not. We can't say the victim is lying, and we don't know what evidence was found during the investigation because almost none of it was revealed to the public. But we do know she was bringing up new allegations in her impact statement that she did not formally bring up during the 18-month investigation. Therefore, they cannot be legally considered during sentencing. It's up for you to decide if she was just an obsessed fan that was jealous and trying to ruin his reputation, or if she is actually a victim of a corrupt legal system. Bell was sentenced to 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service in California, and cannot have any contact with the victim. He was not required to register as a sex offender. At the time, the public looked at Drake as a pedophile who got off with a slap on the wrist. Shortly after this trial, Josh Peck went on various podcasts claiming that he and Drake barely spoke and were never friends, and that's why he wasn't invited to the wedding.
Are you guys like not friends?
Not really, no. The dirty little secret, I guess, was like, I knew that Drake and I didn't stay in touch for the 10 years since we had made the show, but no one needed to know that. And it's delusional because I'm like, bro, it's like we worked at Coffee Bean when we were 16. Like, I'm sorry, I'm 31 now. I might have lost your number. I was happy to just die with that secret that like, we made this thing that people really love, but maybe we weren't that close. So I didn't invite him to my wedding because I hadn't really talked to him in many, many years. Like Drake and Josh is something I'll be synonymous with forever, and I'm proud of it. And I want to like the guy that my name is attached to forever. But unfortunately, you know, it just sort of worked out the way that it did.
It's pretty safe to say that there is enough.
Did you know you could remodel your kitchen faster and for a lot less than at the big box stores? At Cabinets to Go, customize your
Enough evidence in this video to prove that this is a bold-faced lie. They were definitely friends. In fact, they often referred to each other as brothers. They even saw each other once per year, which is actually pretty frequently. A lot of adults don't even get to see their close childhood friends once a year. Now, we do know that they weren't extremely close. They weren't attached at the hip or constantly involved in each other's lives, but Josh is basically saying that Drake was nothing more than a coworker, he barely spoke to him, and he actually didn't even like him, which means one of two things. Either this is actually how Josh felt deep down, and now he just has the perfect excuse to say it, or he's lying to the public to distance himself from Drake because of his legal troubles. And it was from there that Drake's life began to spiral out of control. On December 7th, 2022, eyewitnesses caught Drake in the driver's seat of his car inhaling a substance out of balloons while his toddler son and wife were in the back seat. The very next day, another eyewitness report captured him outside of a vape shop inhaling a blue balloon with his child in the back seat. At the time, Bell was still on probation for attempted child endangerment and was seemingly engaging in a recreational substance known as whippets, where people inhale nitrous oxide from balloons, causing them to experience euphoria, hallucinogenic states, and relaxation. This drug is also extremely addictive and dangerous. The weird behavior continued on April 13th, 2023, when the Daytona Beach Police Department listed Drake Bell as missing and said he had been last seen before 9 p.m. on April 12th in the area of Mainland High School. The department's post noted what car Drake was likely driving, a 2022 gray BMW, and said he could be considered missing and endangered. TMZ obtained a 911 call where someone from Orlando PD explained why police were deeply concerned for Bell's well-being.
Basically, there is a celebrity who had a falling out with his wife. We got involved because the family, he's been texting the family in California saying that he's going to get drunk and hang himself, and he's in a hotel somewhere in Orlando.
Drake tweeted shortly after he was seemingly located, "You leave your phone in the car and don't answer for a night, and this?" While Drake seemed fine given the circumstances, the following week his wife filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Per the petition, Janet asked for legal and physical custody of their son Jeremy, with Bell getting visitation rights. She also sought spousal support. Bell later revealed that he found out my wife filed for divorce from TMZ before promoting his new song, Going Away. In the song, Drake ironically sings about moving away to a remote island with his wife and son and starting a new life. Presumably unable to cope with the stress of losing his wife and child, eyewitnesses caught Drake using whippets once again on April 25th as he inhaled from a fully inflated balloon, merely days after the media publicized his divorce. When paparazzi asked him about it, this was his response.
There's some photos that surfaced of you with red balloons. What do you think? What do you got to say about that, those balloons?
it is what it is. We'll figure it out.
Everything's good?
Yeah, everything's fantastic, man.
Drake Bell was at the lowest point of his life. Drugs had taken over and he had nowhere left to turn but rehab. However, rehab changed his life more than he anticipated as he began to open up about his childhood abuse.
But when I got into rehab, it was a really intense facility. And I went through a lot of grief counseling and trauma therapy and group therapy and one-on-one. I mean, it was all day. And I was unearthing all of these things that I never talked about, not only never talked about with strangers, but even with people I was close to, had never gotten that deep about things that I've experienced and things that have happened. And I was around so many people who, for the first time, had similar stories or incredible trauma in their lives and were opening up and sharing. And that was the first time that I really felt like I was in an environment that was comfortable enough to share and felt comfortable enough around people that weren't going to judge and that really just wanted to see you get better.
During this time, a documentary was being worked on called Quiet on Set, The Dark Side of Kids TV, which aimed to expose the toxic and abusive environment behind the scenes of Nickelodeon in the late 1990s and 2000s, particularly under producer Dan Schneider. The doc features former child stars and crew members sharing accounts of alleged mistreatment, exploitation, and inappropriate behavior that went unchecked for years. After rehab, Bell felt like he had a revitalized outlook on his past and ultimately decided to tell his traumatic Nickelodeon childhood story to the world via this documentary.
Before the rehab, I had said no to the documentary over and over and over and over and over. I was not going to be a part of it. I didn't want any part of it. But after rehab, when I came out, I was like, let me see what your angle is here. I'll talk to you guys. I'll start entertaining this idea because I felt really good. And I felt maybe sharing my story will help me and maybe help others.
After hearing about Drake's abuse, the public did a 180 shift on him. His comment sections went from calling him a pedophile to sharing love, condolences, and positivity. People all of a sudden were empathetic. Some even used his past as an excuse for him allegedly engaging in inappropriate behavior with minors. They said things like Bell was a part of the cycle of abuse and couldn't control what was happening to him. It's true that childhood abuse can have profound psychological effects on survivors, including trauma, depression, and PTSD. Children who grow up suffering abuse may learn abusive behavior as a means of coping or as a model for how relationships function. Approximately 1/3 of all individuals who are abused in childhood will become abusers themselves, according to a study funded by the National Institute of Justice. A survivor of childhood sexual abuse may try to undo that abuse by taking back power. Someone who has been abused can play the role of the more powerful person in the relationship in an attempt to overcome the powerlessness they felt. One day after the Quiet on Set documentary release, Drake released a song and music video called I Kind of Relate. The song starts off with the lyrics, I found beauty in my pain, I'm running away from the abuse and all the shame, cause no one comes to my house anymore, no one knocks on my door. These lyrics are complemented with a visual of him as a child entering his on-set trailer with a grown man who likely represents Brian Peck, his abuser. Then the track quickly transitions to his infamous 2006 car crash, where 19-year-old Drake Bell was stopped at a red light and a driver fell asleep at the wheel going 60 miles per hour, then crashed into his 1966 Mustang head-on. Bell broke his jaw in 3 places, fractured his neck, and lost a bunch of teeth. The song continues, I lost my path so long ago. In 2008, I found love in Mexico, because no one wants to hear me in the States, so I'm running away. However, Bell releasing this music video after the documentary made some people think he was being disingenuous, that he was essentially capitalizing off the publicity to sell a record. Others pointed out that he has been writing about the abuse in his music for years, like in his 2006 song In the End, where he wrote, the monsters in your head have left you all to yourself. It's alright if ugly little things remind you of how it felt. Another day no one tells you what it means, what's in your way and poisoning your dreams, the darkest place that you've ever been. Or in his 2020 track, What Is Wrong? Well, I wish I was a kid again, I would laugh and play, like we did back then. Would I be afraid of all the monsters who just left me here in these abandoned rooms? We all know that artists write music based on their real life experiences, and this is Drake Bell's story to tell. Did he pre-plan this song and video to drop at the same time this documentary came out for strategic business purposes? He absolutely did. But it's pretty safe to assume that Drake would 100 out of 100 times choose to not have experienced this horrific trauma. He would have rather had a normal childhood. And if the tiny benefit is that he can make a song about his pain, then so be it. You could also argue that all the people people who didn't want to hear his story until he came out about his own abuse are more disingenuous. Plus, the people that made the documentary are profiting off his story. Every YouTuber and TikToker and Twitch streamer talking about it or making money from it. That does not diminish or devalue the seriousness of his experience. From there, enraged fans began attacking his co-star Josh Peck, bombarding his comment section with hate, calling him an accomplice, and placing blame on him for Drake's abuse. They just somehow believe that Josh was complicit or aware of Drake's situation. Josh did make a statement on Instagram that he reached out to Drake privately and showed his support for the survivors that spoke out. Drake even asked supporters to take it easy on Josh.
But he has reached out to talk with me and help me work through this, and has been really great. So I just wanted to let you guys know that and to take it a little easy on him.
Drake asking people to give Josh grace is especially profound considering Josh threw him under the bus when Drake's allegations came to light. Then 1 year later, in March of 2025, Josh invited Drake onto his podcast to have a 2-hour-long discussion about most of the things we covered in this video. This pod connected some of the missing pieces the public had been wondering about their roller coaster of a relationship over the years. And even though this podcast had deep introspective moments, great laughs, and some reconciliation, some fans still believe there is a resistance from Josh. At the very end of this podcast, Josh's co-host Ben says, "I love you, Drake," and Josh laughs at that and even repeats, "I love you, Drake," in a mocking, unserious tone, only for Drake to respond with a genuine, "I love you, Josh."
Love you, Ben. Love you.
I love you, Ben.
Great. I love you, Drake.
I love you, Drake. I love you, Josh.
Whenever Drake talks about feeling hesitant or insecure to reach out to Josh in the past, Josh doesn't try to make him feel better or be like, "You can text me anytime, man." He just smiles and nods. It's odd. Drake cares way more for Josh than Josh does for him. It's sad and hard to watch. I'm sorry, but I think Josh is using him to his advantage. He did the same thing a few years ago when it benefited him in his YouTube career and then dropped him again. So fake. Josh has disrespected Drake several times and he comes off as a hater. Now he wants to stand with Drake because of what Drake disclosed happened to him. Such a shame. Josh seems like a fake friend who wants Drake for views. Then again, two things can be true at once. Maybe Josh does see Drake's crimes as reprehensible and unforgivable, but at the same time, he can still feel empathetic for a friend who went through an extremely traumatic and complicated childhood. Even if Josh does still feel resentment towards Drake, whether that be for their complicated childhood or how Drake handled the wedding or Drake's criminal history, it doesn't change this absolute fact. These two are just not the two loving brothers that the fandom so desperately wants them to be. Drake and Josh's relationship is actually very realistic to the real world. It's just complicated. I'm sure you have a friend or brother or cousin or distant family member that you love deep down, but you also don't agree with their life choices. And maybe they piss you off sometimes, but also you understand what they are going through and you truly wish the best for them. You also kind of miss them, and when you see them, you bond and have great times and good laughs. But then time goes by and you start to feel those same resentments, or maybe they mess up again, and you think, all right, I'm done with them forever, even though you know you're not. You never actually tell them how you really feel because it's awkward, or you don't think you should have to speak to them, they should just know, or you're not about to tell another adult how to live their life, or you are holding on to that love that you have for them deep down. And the only true way to get out of this—
Alright, seems like it's good enough. This video was a whole 28 minutes. Not bad. Anyways,